Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 124. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
Rory Summers.
Sid was concentrating hard.
Tongue out and everything. I'm saying I'm not going to mess it up again this week. I'm watching all of you this week. Especially that one there.
There's still time, don't you worry.
You'll get me in the outro this week or something, won't you?
Who knows?
Is there some chaos going on behind you, Andy?
Yeah, well, not at the moment, but there has been, because I have kittens now.
Is that just you've actually got cats, or is that like you're having kittens because you're stressing about something?
Both, but we'll talk about the actual animals. Yes, no, about a month ago, Alora and I decided to bite the bullet, because Alora's been sort of considering it for quite a while, and whether we should or whether we shouldn't, because we've got Kipling, and he's not the friendliest of cats at the best of time. Takes after me, good lad. But we saw, or she saw, this sort of perfect pair of sort of brother sister kittens about a month or so ago. So I managed to talk her into it. So we picked them up and got them out. So for the last month, we've been integrating them into the household, which has been fun. They are nuts. I'm not going to lie. They're lovely. Don't get me wrong. They're really, really cute. And they play with each other and keep each other occupied, which is good, because it means we can let them sort of do their thing, and Kipling can just sort of stay down here where we're recording and stuff and sort of do his thing in his territory. The interactions have been interesting, but he's getting better. There's been no fights, really. Although Kipling had another go at my face this evening as I tried to pick him up when he was stalking them. He wasn't really, going for them, but you could tell he wasn't happy. You can tell the slight swish of a tail and a kind of a sort of, not quite a lion stalking a gazelle, but you could tell he was being very deliberate about what he was doing. So I picked him up, at which point he hissed at me and smacked me in the face. Thanks, Kipling. Cheers. I'm not your enemy here, mate, but, whatever. So, yes, I have two kittens. They are called Kaylee and Haver. I'm not going to explain what those are, because every time I do, I'm either asked to spell them or to explain what it all means. So I'm not going to do that.
So it's Kaylee as in the dance?
Yes, there you go. Thank you for explaining for it. Khalid, yes. And Haver is a Scottish phrase to talk shite, which I thought was quite appropriate.
It is. We should call you Mr. Haver from now on.
Yes, thank you. So yes, we have two new additions to the household, and they're very, very cute. So yes, very, very happy with those. So that's another 20-year commitment I've got myself into.
Oh yeah. Well, if anyone wants a dog, they can have mine.
Things are going well, aren't they, mate?
The little sod. So I work from home, but I've got a work phone which plugs into the back of my computer and hooks onto our system, so it's all a telephone system. And I didn't really route the power cable properly, so it was dangling down a bit. I'm on the phone to someone, and he's obviously in a playing mood, so he's trying to nibble my feet. I was like, oh, go away, just go in the other room, find a toy or something. And the next thing I know, the phone goes dead.
Oh no.
Because he's chewed through the power line for the phone.
Oh dear.
Thankfully, not injured. But I did have to find a new bloody power socket for the phone.
Yes, they do that, don't they? Kipling did that with my work laptop a few years ago. And it was on my bedside table, but not 100% on the bedside table. I thought balanced enough. Gravity and Kipling thought otherwise. He jumps on the top and then jumps off. The force of him pushing away with his back feet pushed my laptop off the bedside table, and it smacked onto the floor, and a permanent dent in the corner of the laptop, and the speakers and microphone have not worked since.
Oh dear. I can see, okay. Well, he hasn't managed to do anything to my board games yet. Although he did, when we were painting the troll.
Oh yeah.
He did run off with a troll one point.
Oh, did he?
Whoa, no way, really?
He had it in his mouth. He was running off with it. It's like, come on, here, have some treats. Have some peanut butter. Go on.
Please don't put teeth marks into it and add more texture to it.
It was before it was painted, thankfully, as well. So if he had done it, then you could have made it green stuff or something. Yeah. But yeah, it was a bit. Don't you dare do that. Please. I've been looking back, and I realised that this time last year I should have celebrated an anniversary.
I'm guessing you're not talking about you and Amanda.
No, I wouldn't be alive if I
No, I
forgot
was
about
going
that.
to say, yes, you'd be talking to us from beyond the grave.
Yes, because about this time of year is the 11th anniversary of when I started Polyhedron Collider.
Oh,
Wow.
Annoyingly, it means I should have remembered this last year because that would have been 10th.
Yes. Did we not remember it last year?
No, I'm stupid.
Oh, okay. Well, what can we say? Never mind.
And I thought it was the 10th and 5th. So 10 years since I started the blog and 5 years since we started the podcast. However, we started the podcast in
2016.
2016. So I keep thinking we're going to be doing this like 2 or 3 years.
We've got older and less cohesive over the years.
I think
Coherence,
I've-
rather, not cohesive.
I think I've only been doing this 2 or 3 years. I'm trying to remember when I joined now, to join the podcast.
Yes, when did we absorb board meetings?
It was around the same time we started playing D&D together.
God, that was 5 years ago.
Oh, God. That's
Christ, is that
I mean, I was going
Oh,
to say, am I not coming up to about a year or two now?
Must be about a year for you.
You're over a year, Sid. 'cause
I'm
you
over
were
a
on-
year,
you
so
were on the
you must
best
be a
of
lot
last
more
year.
than that, Rory.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking when I started playing D&D, which is roughly the same time I started writing for Polyhedron Collider, I only had one child.
It's
'Cause-
6 years. It's 6 years since we started D&D.
Is it that long? No.
Is it really?
Yeah, because
No.
because I've been in this house 5 years, and we started playing D&D when I was in renting a house in Chipping Camden.
No.
it was the year before. I
That
moved
makes
in here.
sense,
Was
yeah,
it?
because I remember, yeah.
Yeah,
Because Logan used to appear on when we started streaming the games, Logan would pop up every now and then because it was bedtime and he was only about a year old.
Actually, you make a very good point. Jaya was probably just under a year old as well, which would put it at about 5 years. Yeah. Okay.
Welcome to
Yeah.
Feeling Old with Polyhedron Collider.
Everyone
Right.
sit back, get your pipes out, slippers, and put the fire on.
Well, I've got a mug of tea, so we're all right. And
Well,
I've just
there
tanned a
we go.
pack of rich tea.
that shows you how much we've changed. I remember recording those first few episodes, and we tanned about 4 beers each during those episodes.
I'm on number 2.
Should be during, before.
I'm too
I'm
scared to have
sorry.
another beer.
There were distinctly some episodes back then where we were slurring.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then you edit it, and we got more slurry as the episode went on.
Thankfully, we've got more professional over the years because we
Just
can't
about.
take it anymore.
Getting old. Should we talk about some board game news? Because we've got a lot to go
I
through
was
this
going
week.
to say, Jesus, this is going to be like news night looking at this lot.
Oh, a lot's been happening.
It has been an exciting couple of weeks for some board gaming news anyway. It's been rife.
has.
I've had people at work sending me, have you heard this news story about this thing? I was like, why are you sending me board game news? Because they're like, because it's appeared on my news feed. So it's
Must be
actually,
important then.
it's been big enough that other people have been telling me about it. And I'll be like, no, I've been too busy working to read the news. Which of course, I've not been too busy working, but that's what I say to them, of course.
It turns out that this time of year, or at least in a month or so, since recording this, or since we record this podcast, right, from the 9th to the 12th of March this year, it is the annual expedition to Arrogate for Aircon. Usually at least one of us goes, usually me. At least it has been the last couple of years, but we've all been, I think, at some point in our lives, with possible exception of Rory and Sid. So half of us on this podcast have been before.
There was a point previously when all 3 members had been, but
That's true. That was a while ago.
we had a
yeah.
cabinet reshuffle, haven't we? So-
We did, yes. So yes, John, myself, and Steve have been a few times in the past, but the new blood, the YTS, have yet to experience this event.
The
But it's-
parents.
the parents.
The parents who can't swan off for a weekend without the kids.
The people in this podcast who have made poor life choices.
No, we've created spares for when we'll need them.
Anyway, this is held in the convention centre in Harrogate. A very, very nice place, lovely town, and it is extremely popular, and it's going to be getting more and more popular over the years since we were last. Well, since we first started going, because it was in Leeds the first time we went.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a church.
In a church in Leeds. So how it has grown. But now the venue has not changed, but the rooms we're using, if I remember rightly, have changed. So instead of being sort of locked down in the basement where all the nerds should be, out of the sunlight for fear it will burn us, we're actually being let upstairs where there are things like windows. But because aircon has grown so much and got so popular, and rightly so, it's a bloody good event. And instead of being unlike Expo, which is very much focused on the commercial side, the demo side, everyone touting all of their wares, and it's a very sort of full-on, 2 or 3 days. Aircon is still a pretty full-on 2 or 3 days, but everything is focused around playing board games, playing RPGs, and the actual fun side of the hobby, rather than getting harassed by salesmen and producers and things alike. So you just go up, bring far too many board games that you'll get played with you, as everybody's hauling around bags and bags of stuff. Play about 3 games a day when you're intending to play 6. Drink beer, have fun, eat food, and generally just enjoy yourselves. It's a really, really great event. This year it is starting on the Thursday rather than the traditional Friday. So get up there, get involved. Because of the change of a venue, my understanding from talking to Mr. Cook, Mark Cook, who organises this, or at least is the principal on this, there are no sort of small side events anymore, or at least not this year, due to just the change in the reshuffle of the venue. It's only the sort of the big ones, the big sort of lectures and things like that are going on this year. So we will not be there in a podcasting or entertainment capacity. I will be there, as will my housemate, and a few people from my Bewdley board gaming group are going to be there as well for the first time. So Steve is yet to make a decision. He may or may not be there. So watch this space, or at least watch Aircon space. He may be there if you fancy doing spotting the lesser spotted Wrexham ginger. It's a rare species. And hopefully we shall see you there. Say hello. I don't bite much. I should be in some recognisable paraphernalia, as well as some of the new merch that Rory's been acquiring for us.
Wearing it today.
So it's a bloody good hoodie, actually.
It's really comfortable. I very rarely take it off, actually. Only to wash it.
It's very, I've had to wash mine a couple of times. But yes, so we will be there 9th to the 12th of March in the Harrogate Convention Centre this year. So we look forward to seeing you there.
So there's been a bit of a stir with a new announcement from Stonemaier Games, with the first game designed by Jamie Stegmaier for some time, which is a sequel to Scythe.
Ooh.
This is Scythe. This is 1920 Expeditions, a Scythe game, I think it's called. Up for pre-order at the moment, which you can order from many of your local retailer or direct from Stonemaier Games.
Of course, because they don't do Kickstarter or crowdfunding anymore, do
Oh
they?
no, I think Scythe was the last Kickstarter.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Now this looks. I've had a look into this game and it looks very different to Scythe. So this is like a hand management, card management game about exploration. So rather than a hex map being a board which is area control, it's a hex map you explore by moving to different locations and revealing things, and then you do multi-use cards to do things on the map, like move your little mech, your little tractor, explore things and take actions. And it seemed, and I did look at a little demo that Jamie did about how some cards would get discarded, some cards get tucked under, which represents you using meteorite iron, and some cards get played for different things. So it looks very Martin Wallacey in that regard, and that you use your cards for different things. But I was quite surprised at how different it was, considering he says it's a sequel to Scythe.
Well, it's set in the same universe, isn't it?
Yeah. But I was quite surprised just how much of this appears to be almost a completely different game with some similarities. Like the way in which the actions worked had some slight similarity to the way they do in Scythe, but not really the same.
Right.
Now, what I did find interesting about this, the bog standard edition has an RRP of £85.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised.
You don't think? Okay.
No,
I think that's a bit rude.
I mean, it's not cheap, let's be honest here. But if we actually look around at how expensive shit has got in the last couple of years.
True. What gets me is I looked at the demo of this, and you look at the actual, the old Scythe, and look at the big board and how extravagant it is. This didn't look that expensive, if that makes sense.
Oh, right.
It looked to me like it should have been a 50 quid game.
Right, okay.
An 85 quid game.
I'm currently looking at the Stonemaier Europe website.
Yes.
And yes, RRP of £85. Currently, Expeditions is £69 for pre-order.
Yes.
But if you want to go full Lewis, then you can order the one with the metal mechs in it and pay £99, which, to be fair, doesn't sound that much more, considering you get a bunch of metal stuff.
Mm.
But it would be pimp, so, take it or leave it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I haven't looked inside the box, so I cannot comment.
Oh, have you not? Okay.
No.
You're not looked at this yet. Oh, I thought
I
you'd
haven't.
been all over this.
Well, no. I don't know, because somebody says, oh, it's a card game. I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
It's not a card game, it's more of a card-driven game.
Ah, now I've clicked the other link that says, what's in the box? Ooh, that's rather pretty. But if that is all that's in the box, that does seem quite expensive for what you get.
Yes, I think it feels a bit overpriced for what it is.
Mm.
But who knows what the game will be like. It'd be intriguing. I was hoping you'd actually looked into this a bit more and see what your thoughts were, considering you're a big... you always used to be a massive Stonemaier fan.
Yeah, you mentioned Scythe before, and to be honest, I think, in my opinion, Scythe's the last good one he made. I don't mean as a designer, I just meant as a company. Because I was lukewarm about Wingspan, although to be fair, Laura really likes Wingspan, and she's bought all the expansions, and now we have a deck of cards the size of the house, because of all the Asia and Oceania and America and goodness knows what else, Europe. And then there was Red Rising, which was shite. And then there was Libertalia, which I played a few times, but I haven't been particularly taken with. It's not bad, but it's a remake of an existing game. Just been sort of given the Stonemaier pimp. It's very pretty, but I wouldn't buy it personally.
Oh well.
So
well, let's wait and see then. In other news, Inside the Box Kickstarter got hacked by its own employees. Now, if you've not been following, Inside the Box is a board game company, and we got sent a few prototypes of their Kickstarters in the past and reviewed them. Actually, I think the last one reviewed was when we were still sitting around the table reviewing it, so it's a good 5 or 6 years ago, probably.
Well, you say that.
But Scorer, was it? Yeah.
Scorer, yes. Rory and I were both at Expo last year, and he was there with Inside the Box, and they were demoing various other bits and bobs, and one of the prototypes they had was some kind of Starship Command game. But one of the games that we were privy to was a game called Scorer, which we ended up playing a few times, and it's essentially a Viking fishing game, but there's a lot of player interaction in it, and it's only about 15 quid. It's got a sort of small game, but to be fair, that was quite good fun.
I'll stop you there because you'll never see that game.
Have it?
No, you'll never see that game in production.
Oh no, you mean the Starship one? Yes, I know. I am.
No. You'll never see any of the games in production.
Okay, so what's happened, Steve? What's going on?
Inside the Box, I've gone to coin a phrase, tits up.
Base over Apex.
All accounts, all staff have been let go.
Mm.
The managing director is still the only employee and is no longer working full-time, and is in fact working as an IT consultant to try and raise money to fund and ship the 4 Kickstarters that are yet to be delivered.
4?
4.
Wow.
Yes.
What are the 4?
So we've got Subterra 2.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Alba.
That's the RPG.
Cryptex.
Yeah.
One more that I can't remember the name of. It's to do with fish.
Scorer.
Oh no, it's the it's the Octomarine.
Yes. Octomarine.
I want to say Octonauts, but that's a children's cartoon. It's not that. Only Sid gets it.
Well, some of these are apparently have been made and are sitting in a warehouse. Subterra 2 apparently is sitting in a warehouse, but there is not enough money in the company to fund shipping. However, Subterra 2 has been shipped to retailers.
Of course.
So you can buy it in the stores, but people who backed it on Kickstarter have not been sent to
because they were selling at Expo last year.
Yes, they were.
Yes.
They've got loads of it. I think they had it the year before that as well.
Well, none of the Kickstarter backers have received their copies yet.
Right.
The same goes for the other 3.
Wow.
Well, There are stories going round, but basically, as I said, all the staff were let go. And the reason I mentioned this news article is because a Kickstarter update appeared on all 4 of these projects that basically said, Peter, pay your staff. So, update 54, I'm going to use Subterra 2. Update 54 says, pay your ex-employees, Peter, as the header. And the text says, Peter still owes his employees wages, missing pension, and redundancy.
Right,
Nice.
and that's it. Is that the whole thing?
And that update was posted on 4 separate Kickstarter projects.
Wow. That's not
So-
good.
Yes, I probably have to go back and double check the allegedly on some of these. So the allegedly he's the only member of staff, and allegedly he is working as an IT consultant. But I believe that was also in one of the updates as well. So basically, Subterra, Inside the Box is not doing well at all.
No, it's
And,
on the
things have
same
gone-
tune. Mythic
Yes.
Games have posted something not quite as terrible, thankfully, but they have encountered difficulty as well. Now, obviously, the last couple of years for a lot of companies have not been great, especially with the cost of shipping. So I'm sure that has had a part to play in a lot of these stories. But Mythic Games as well, they've been basically. I mean, you've probably seen an advert every 4 seconds if you've been scrolling Facebook or Instagram, selling off Darkest Dungeon. So they've been sort of flogging that to try and raise funds for various projects that they've got in the works. One of which is Hell: The Last Saga, of which I am a backer, so I'm reasonably interested in how this turns out. But they posted an update, I think it was last week, basically saying we've done a bunch of reshuffling. We know we've still got some projects in the go. We're okay, but don't hold your breath at this point in time. But please watch this space. We're still here. We're still doing things. So they've not gone under. But from what I hear, rumours are there aren't many of them left in Mythic Games. But they're still going. But obviously they've had to have a hard think about what they're doing.
So is Mythic Games a British or English company?
French.
Okay.
Although they did have a British office at one point, which employed a handful of people, several of which we knew from development of games that we play tested at Expo a couple of times. And my understanding is, they all got let go. Oh, this is before lockdown. This was like 2019. They all got let go. So things at Mythic have not been brilliant for quite some time. I do believe I understand that quite a lot of them went and moved to Lucky Duck. So speaking to them individually, I've seen them at different expos that quite a lot of them got hoovered up by Lucky Duck Games.
We've reorganised ourselves in the year 2023. It's had several consequences. They've streamlined their IP portfolio with over 30 IPs. They've decided to focus on 3 major ones. So Darkest Dungeon, Hell, and Anastia, which I have to admit I've never heard of. They've sold a bunch on as well. So obviously it looks like they're raising funds for these projects. To people like Simon or Monolith, so it's entirely possible you might see some of those IPs being produced by Simon or Monolith or others, because they've done obviously quite a lot of miniature stuff in the past. They've reduced and reorganised their teams, so more external staff and much less internal staff, which raised an eyebrow from me, because in my experience as a former consultant, consultants are not cheap.
But you have less obligations to a consultant.
That is true. That is true. You don't have to pay for things like pensions and stuff. So I'm sure they've made sensible decisions there.
And you can jettison them when you don't need them.
That is true. Yes, with a lot fewer, as you say, stress. So they need more flexibility to input their new strategy. So presumably they're getting in, part-time designers or whatever. I guess I don't know, but that would be my assumption there. They can get people in as and when you need, as they need, as you say, Sid. They're implementing new digital tools as well to be more efficient in various areas. So it looks like they may have learned from some mistakes in the past. They're trying to make a sensible way forward. So whilst it's not the best news for a lot of backers, I think that's the kind of communication that's actually quite good. It's been honest. It's not nice to hear, but it means at least Mythic have actually been reasonably proactive in their attempt to try and sort things out. Now, there's been a lot of ire on their website and the Kickstarter stuff about there's been no updates and blah blah blah. But we can take all of that with a pinch of salt, because obviously
I think we can.
They probably had bigger fish to fry.
Well, yeah, it's one of the things that annoyed me about the Inside the Box thing is immediately people going like, "Where's my game?" It's like we spent £50 on the game. There's employees here without salary and pension. That's a bit more than £50. That so
that's exactly. And let's be fair. As a backer, you're the one taking the risk here.
This attitude I've noticed is a bit weird. Kickstarter is a risk. You're not buying something, and I've got to admit, you've got to take aboard that risk when you do kickstart something. And I think all these people who say you should demand refunds have kind of missed the point of what Kickstarter is as well.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, Kickstarter has changed. It has become. It feels more like a pre-order platform now, but
it is still a risk. Yeah, I remember there's the not to rub salt in the wound, Steve, but is it Perfect Crime from Grubbling Games?
Perfect Crime, yeah. Which that's £40.
£40, yeah.
I've never seen.
Yeah, I didn't even kickstart that one. I pre-ordered that from their website. And,
wow.
Yeah, but they went under. They just disappeared. So,
speaking of people whinging on the internet,
there are a lot.
I don't know. It's been really quiet. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, are you trying to tell me something happened in the last 2 weeks?
Have we missed something, Steve?
Something of epic proportions, perhaps.
I'm assuming for the purpose of podcasts that you have known nothing about this.
Oh, please, sir, do educate me.
Please, Mr. Tudor Governor, can you tell us the news?
I need to put that as the soundbite before the news now. So, we are talking about the OGL, the Open Gaming License, which is the method by which Wizards of the Coast allowed third parties to produce content for D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and thereby other companies took on board this system which allowed them to open up their gaming license. So basically it allows any person to produce content for Dungeons and Dragons, and then if they want, they can sell it. Which is the important part of the license. This is not to be confused with just homebrewing your own stuff at home. This is producing it for profit.
Commercially.
Yes, and this is what DM's Guild is all about. There's 101 Kickstarters that do this. A leak occurred of an update to this Open Gaming License, which was advertised as OGL 1.1, which changed a lot of things and made the internet angry.
It's an easy thing to do these days.
Yes.
But the interesting thing is what Rory said earlier, is it didn't just make the TTRPG community angry, it made everybody angry.
A lot of people got this. I mean, the people like the guys I work with and the people I'm friends with are all of some description, a geek of some description. They're into video games or comic books or sci-fi fantasy movies. So it's not in their sphere, it's just outside it. But it appeared on a lot of news feeds.
So we'll get into it, but the reason it's affected lots of people is because the ramifications of this behaviour was huge for software and lots of things.
I won't go into all the details about what this updated OGL did, but some of the key points that people took major offence with is it stipulated a revenue return to Wizards of the Coast. So if you made over 750,000, then you had to pay Wizards of the Coast 20% of all revenue above that figure.
That's a lot.
The reason for that is obviously Wizards of the Coast want to start clawing back money. They can see people like, is it Tanaris RPG, which I think a couple of our RPG group backed, made like 2.5 million Kickstarter, and it's a 5e campaign. It's a D&D 5e campaign, and made like £2.5 million. Another one was that Wizards of the Coast said that they would own the rights to anything you publish. And that was an interesting one, and I did hear an interesting argument for that. That was basically if Wizards of the Coast, let's say, I don't know, Rory publishes a game and it's got Sonics in it, and he makes a really good version of Sonics for D&D 5e. And at the same time, Wizards were developing their own Sonics rules and just happened to come up with the same rules as Rory. It meant they had recourse to kind of claw that back. That's the logic behind it. But yes, everyone reads this. Wizards are going to take all my stuff. But
it's what they wrote, though, boss. It is what they wrote down.
It is what they wrote, but 3 of us in this podcast are from a technology company which has similar stipulations on patents.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, when I started, actually said all intellectual property.
I'm pretty
A bit of a furore.
I'm pretty sure that's in my contract right now. So that anything that I create, if I write a short story, technically my company owns it.
Yeah, and that's quite a common clause. Anyway, there was a lot of things in it, and the other thing is as well is one of the wording it used was the original OGL basically said this is set in stone, it's completely irreversible, and of course this new OGL reversed it. So made a lot of people upset. Apparently, this was just a leak. So, of course, things were smoothed over, things were changed. A 1.2 came along.
Was that leaked as well, or was that publicly released?
No, I think the 1.2 was publicly announced, and people still weren't happy with that because of some of the changes. And eventually, Wizards of the Coast rescinded and said that this is, we're not going to do it. OGL 1.1a, which I think is it 1.10a is the current version, will stay as it is, and we're also going to put D&D under Creative Commons license as well. So
SRD at least.
Yes, the SRD. So, and that should be said as well. The OGL on its own doesn't work in isolation. It has to be written in conjunction with the SRD, and the SRD for each system is different. So there's an SRD for 3.5 D&D, there's an SRD for 5, there's an SRD for 4, which apparently the 4 one is really strict, which is why you don't get any expansions.
What's an SRD?
Yeah, what's SRD?
A system rule description or something like that. Or standard rule description. It's a basic rule set that the game operates on.
Sure,
so if you go online and you dig it out, you'll find all the how you roll, the attributes, all that kind of really basic fundamental tenets of the game.
One of the things, Andy, did you look at the one for Free League?
I did quite a while ago because I have been sort of throwing together an RPG in the background based on one of their systems.
Well, if you look at that one, that has a format. Yes. It says basically if you're going to release it, it has to be in this format, of this contents list, on this background, with these chapter headings. So that's your SRD basically. That's the thing that says that ties you down to what you're going to do with it.
Systems reference document.
That's it.
Title for it.
SRD. Do you know, I should know that from working for that technology company because pretty much every project I worked on had an SRD.
Yeah, but that's a requirements document, not a reference document.
I know, it's still, you know.
What I find I found this entire thing fascinating from the things they wanted to do and the updates and the backlash, and there's all kinds of there's all kind of weird things going in there. Like they said it was to try and clamp down on people doing D&D NFTs, and then there was a weird line in one of the second version that said like you can't do spell animations in your virtual tabletop.
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous.
Which was a bit of a weird one. But I think what's interesting is looking at why this has all happened. And there's a fascinating video. So a lot of this was leaked by D&D Shorts. He covered a lot of it, and he does a really interesting video about what's happened at Wizards of the Coast lately. He got a load of leaks, and he says, you know, basically putting them all into one video where he's basically said, "This is what I've been told and why." And the gist of it is, Dungeons and Dragons makes about 100 to 150 million a year revenue, but like if we're playing D&D now, 4 of us, like let's ignore Andy's like compulsive purchasing behavior. Normally, one person, you know, each of us buys a player's handbook, and then the DM goes and buys Dungeon Master's Guide, Monsters Manual, campaign book, add-on, you know. And so what's happening is Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast are looking at this and going, well, out of 4 players, only one of those people is actually paying any money for this game now.
I think the word at Wizards / Hasbro is monetization of the license. That's what this is all about and has always been about as soon as Hasbro got behind the wheel.
Well, the rumour is also that seems to be circling is they make about 100 to 150 million. They want it to be 500 million.
And they will get there.
Yeah, which is a massive figure. And so a lot of this seems to be pushed by what's happening with one D&D, which is we call the 6th edition, which has got its own, it could have its own virtual tabletop, which is its own Wizards of the Coast made virtual tabletop. It looks pretty neat, but you can kind of already see the path for microtransactions in that. You know, do you want your tiefling to have red skin? Oh, that's only £1.
Sure, your tiefling should have red skin.
No, but that's yeah, it should. But what's going to happen is you'll get the base character. So as a player, you will end up having a bit. You'll be playing Fortnite. That's what you're going to end up doing in this VTT. You will have your character, and they will have a base loadout, and you can play the whole game with your base loadout, right? But 50 pence more, you can have the right clothing. Make your character unique, have the right skin. Oh, you can buy the elf pack. Oh, this is December, so you can have the Christmas Santa pack.
I definitely shouldn't be playing this as Arakistan down. The
And
number of new suits I bought in that game.
And slowly, those 50 pence purchases become £10 a month. And then becomes 20 quid a month. And slowly, you've got what they're looking for is that base revenue that just keeps ticking. Subscriber-esque every month, which... The other parts of the leaks and the rumours were about D&D Beyond, which I'm sure we'll get to, which is all about milking that cash cow even harder and even faster till just air comes out.
Well, I wonder what's going to happen with things like Roll20, because that uses, obviously, officially licensed stuff.
Now, a lot of that is officially licensed.
So presumably Roll20 pay a fee for it, and then they just...
Which is separate from, it's separate from the OGL, that. This is where that gets interesting. A lot of people kind of thought that, but when you buy like a module on Roll20, let's say you buy Curse of Strahd module for Roll20, that's just licensed. They've paid a license for that.
I see, that's okay.
Yes, that doesn't fall under the OGL at all. Now, what they'll do after that, as I said, it seems to be that Wizard of the Coast are pushing this one D&D with its own virtual tabletop. It'll be interesting to see what they do about that kind of thing with the new campaigns. Maybe they won't even release the new campampains on other
have to play
platforms.
on VTT. And
Well, that's what they're going to do. Of course, that's what... So I think the whole thing here is they're going to... We'll see that when one D&D comes out, that the entire play surface will change. The new one D&D will come with a new OGL and a new SRD. And guess what? It will be 1.1/1.2, and that's how it will be written.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what they're going to. That's why they've done what they've done. They're not. It's not the kindness of the heart that they've relinquished this kind of, or rescinded any of this. It's just because the entire world went mental 2 months before their film came out. They cannot afford for this kind of stuff to be in the press in March.
I can't help but feel they could have handled this a little differently and just gone, it's a leak, it's nothing.
It was an interesting leak because some people also said, yeah, we knew about this. We've been knowing about this for weeks. So some third-party developers, I can't remember the names, allegedly. So it was like, it wasn't just a case of, oh, this is like 6 months down the line. This was like a week away from being signed and put in place kind of thing.
Shit.
Yeah. Yes, that said, allegedly.
Huge
allegedly. So smashing of allegedly on the top of this.
An asterisk the size of a supernova.
What's interesting is this has led to a massive increase in sales of other RPGs.
Ooh.
Pathfinder sold 8 months worth of printed stock in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
They basically ran out of Pathfinder rulebooks.
Wow.
Well, that was helped by Paizo, Kobold Press, and a lot of the other people that rely on the OGL going, hang about. Well, if they're going to do that to us, we'll make our own, called the Orc. So they produce their own OGL equivalent now, which they will, I reckon, slowly transition to. And that, the internet went, hang on a minute, that's quite a nice idea. And they started off and said, oh, we'll make it, what did they say? They're going to put it with a law firm or something, so it was completely untouchable.
Yeah, but third party, they said.
And it was like,
someone,
if you were any of these third parties played it like grown-ups, they did the right thing and they behaved properly with the situation in front of them. Whereas what did Wizards do? Oh yeah, they posted on D&D Beyond, haha, you didn't win, nor did we. Hang on a minute, what kind of PR person writes that kind of stuff? So yeah,
Wizards about to get his P45, I think.
Let's just say Wizards did not handle it very well, and it took, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I think, before they actually let the grown-up, anyway, one of the executive producers or something like that, finally came out as the front face of all of this, and it was only then that the smoothing over started to happen, and that's when all this, we're backing off, we're not going to do that, don't worry, everyone calm down.
Yeah.
Kind of behaviour came in. Well, no, I think this is it now. I think, as I say, for me, this is done, and next year, one D&D will come out, and it will come out with all the things that people have balked at right now. But because it's a new system, it's going to be very difficult for folk to get animated about it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I agree. Absolutely. It can go one of two ways. Either it'll work and they'll get all of the microtransactions in a new sexy VTT, or everyone will go, that shit, we'll just stick to 5e and play on Roll20.
Mate, you mark my words now. It's February now. Christmas this year, we will be buying D&D toys for our kids.
You and Rory will be.
Well, you will be buying them for your friends' kids. This year's toy, I reckon, at Christmas time will be something D&D related. Either action figures, towels, whatever crap they can put their name on.
Be Thumberchild.
Christmas this year.
Yeah.
But there is a Thumberchild plushie.
There you go.
That's really cool.
They will be, and that's what this is all driving. This is what the whole thing is about.
Well, they do say there's no such thing as bad publicity.
This was bad publicity.
This was probably
But in the long term, it might not be, as you suggest. So,
well, it is interesting because they did say that a lot of people cancelled their
D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond subscriptions, which did massively reduce their turnover that month. As I said earlier, Pathfinder went for an 8-month supply. Apparently, Chaosium for Call of Cthulhu said they went through months of stock in a few weeks. The Free League apparently sold doubled what they normally sell in January. So there was already a massive shift away from it, and from my point of view, I think this is really good. We've always said one of the things that we've been annoyed about on this podcast is how many RPGs kind of hammer themselves into 5e because that's the popular platform, which doesn't really work. It's like you see something come on Kickstarter, oh, there's going to be a Transformers RPG, oh, it's in 5e.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm quite interested that more people are having their eyes open to other games.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to see how I wonder, just as a side thought, and I'm having literally right this second, I wonder what the impact on Stranger Things is going to be.
I don't make any difference.
It won't make any
Probably
difference.
not, no.
But again, this is my other thought on all of this. This is not about players like us. We're not, as Steve said, we're not the right people to. We won't fall for microtransactions. We won't fall for all the other stuff.
Too tight-fisted.
No, it's not so much that. It's I don't fall for microtransactions. I go for maxi transactions because I three more campaigns in Roll20 before I start Strahd.
Right.
But you are already exactly the person that Hasbro want to make every player, right? That's the person they want. They don't want folk that, as Steve says, buy one person in the group of 4 or 6 buys the books, like 2 or 3 books, maybe more. But generally speaking, most people will either have a PHP if they're lucky, or won't even bother with that.
So you're saying I should be a spokesperson for Wizards of the Coast?
No, I'm saying that you are the kind of person they don't want. What they want, D&D's evolving, D&D's growing, and it should, and it's exactly what should happen to it. It is hitting mainstream. They're trying to draw in a different crowd of people, aren't like us. They want to bring in a much more accessible gaming format, and they're going to do that through the digital media. That's what they bought D&D Beyond. They're transitioning into that. That's how they're going to make 600 million quid a year. You don't make 600 million quid a year off folk like us buying paper copies of books. You just don't. It doesn't work. The maths does not add up. You work out how many paper books you have to sell to make 600 million quid. It ain't going to work. It doesn't count out right.
I suppose not. Well, I don't know.
It doesn't. The only way to do it is monthly, regular subscription base with a top up of packs and all that extra stuff. And in there, you will get book revenue as a slight bonus on the side.
Just as a quick side calculation, as we're on the computer here, and this is easy to do, to answer your question, Sid, if everybody just bought the Player's Handbook, assuming that's £35, which I don't think is unreasonable, to make 600 million just in turnover, you would have to sell 17.14 million copies of the Player's Handbook.
And there we have the unscalable mechanism to get to 600 million pounds.
That's a lot.
As I said, D&D is the biggest RPG out there, and it's estimated that currently 100 to 150 million is their revenue. So, anyway, should we talk about some board games we've been playing?
Yes,
we should.
You're right there, Rory.
Yeah, great. I just wait to hear what you guys are talking about because I've been playing loads of board games. and I've worked out that I'm statistically rubbish at them, but I've not played any of the games that you guys have, so I'm just here to absorb your gaming knowledge.
Absorb our wisdom.
Yeah, I've been playing loads, but I'm not going to talk about any of them because you guys haven't played them, so it's all right.
Well, I think we should start with Tiletum, because this is a game we did wave in front of you, Rory, and kind of go, shall we play this?
Really
and you really wanted to play it.
I still do.
Yeah,
I still do.
Well, let's hear your opinion once we've finished describing it, shall we? So, Tiletum is a Euro game. The most Euro of Euro. I tell you what, have you seen the Pro ZD video about Ameritrash versus Euro games? It's a little YouTube video where he goes, like, starts off like a heavy metal thing, and he goes like Ameritrash games. You roll 52 dice, and when dice match, they explode. That's your initiative. Now go for the 54 more dice. And in the Euro game, it goes, now Vale comes to the exciting world of Jamestown. Right, that's Tiletum. It is the most Euro of Euro games.
Oh,
because
you think that's harsh?
No, that's actually too much emotion, frankly. There was inflections in there and all sorts.
Fair.
This is a game which has we said, we were describing rules to Sid, and we said one of the best things you can do when explaining rules to someone is marry the rule to the theme.
Yeah, so you can tell a story.
And I have no idea how to do that with Tiletum, because it really does feel like a random mixture of Euro mechanics. But I'll try.
So what is the theme of Tiletum?
Beige.
Cardboard.
It is a game in which you have a merchant and an architect, and I believe what you're trying to do is you're a rich merchant's house, medieval Europe, and you are trying to make a rich and powerful house.
Okay, cool.
You will do this by traveling Europe in your little caravan and setting up markets.
Okay.
And you'll also send a little architect over to go build cathedrals.
Not my house.
Not your house,
No,
cathedrals.
right.
So you effectively have two workers on the board. So two workers, your little merchants and little
I've got
architects.
the merchant that works for me, and I've
independently.
got the architect that works for me, neither of which are doing anything to my house that I want to build.
No,
Okay.
because that's a different board. Right?
Okay.
Oh, is that my house?
You're also starting to build houses, which you are trying to get people to live in your houses, and which represent. I think it's representing doing something with royalty or influential people, because you need crests for that, which is like a little board over here. Anyway,
I just assumed it was your trading house, because your little sort of caravan goes around the board, and you're setting up the actual physical houses on the board that represent trading houses.
Yeah,
I assumed, rightly or wrongly, that the thing your player board, which is this house that Rory has nobody in it, because his architect and his merchant are off on a lash. I assumed that that's a representation of these houses, and therefore you're trying to attract all of these well-to-dos into your house, and therefore to get better trade.
No, that makes even less sense than I thought it was.
How?
But because you've just confused me even more than I was when I looked at it before.
Right.
It does.
Sid, basically, right, I've got it right so far, right? There's an architect and a merchant, and they're brothers, right? And they both like the same woman.
Do you know what? Actually, that makes a lot more sense, because you weren't allowed the same woman in the same place. You had to have the groups of people were the same. So actually, yeah, Rory, I'm on your bus. You haven't even played it, and that's made more sense to me than these two could have provided. And I've played it.
I have played it, and it still doesn't make any bloody sense.
That's what I mean, is we've played it. Anyway, look, let's move on from the theme for a moment.
To be fair, what this game is, and don't take this the wrong way, it is a collection of mechanics which all do fit together. They just don't really fit together in any kind of thematic way, in my opinion, which makes it quite hard to teach. But the basic way in which it works is you have a little circle of actions. Which are 6 different actions representing the 6 different face of a die. When you select an action, so each face of a die is linked to a particular action that changes every round because the little dice thing rotates. You will pick one of 4 different colours, 5 different colours that represent 5 different resources. The number on the face of the die represents how many of those resources you pick when you pick the die. So if you pick the yellow 6, you get 6 gold.
Okay.
1 white, get 1 cotton. The number of actions you can do is the opposite to that face.
Okay.
So if you take 6 gold,
I
you
get
can
one
do 1
action.
action. which is that one action of that, which could be move your merchant, it could be move your architect.
And that one action is a 1 gold action, is it?
No.
Okay,
it's
right.
one action
No.
for the space in which you take it from, which is dictated by the rotating thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
No, with you. Okay.
And so there's 5 different actions and then 1 wild card, which allows you to take one of the other actions. You can also manipulate this. You can spend gold to move dice to neighbouring sections. If, like, for instance, you want to move your merchant and there's no dice in the merchant slot, you can spend gold to move dice into there, and it rolls down, so it will always have the same face for that slot. So it will have go up or down in value. Now, the real aim of the game, which you're going to get the most points, is there are 4 markets throughout the game, which are in 4 different locations on the board. And these markets are 4 different victory conditions, and they're completely randomized every time. And although the base game starts with Tiletum as your starting town, you can actually randomize it so it's 4 completely different random towns. These will be things like victory points for the number of houses you've got on the board, victory points for the number of pillars, which are basically what your architect is influencing the cathedrals, victory points for the number of cathedrals built, victory points for certain your house board filled up, things like that. And these change each time, and I must admit, these change drastically and do really change the theme of the game. However, there's an interesting clincher, which me and Andy both fell foul of at several different times, in that to score those victory conditions, you either have to have your merchant or a house meeple in that town at the end of that round.
So you can have like 200 points worth of stuff, but if your merchant ain't rocked up, you ain't getting jack shit, Space Cowboy. And that's hard, because when you've got one market at the bottom right-hand corner of the map, and the other market in the next round is at the top left-hand corner, you've got to shift.
Or build your house.
Yeah.
Or build your house.
Or build a house. But you still need the merchant to build the house. The merchant still has to go to that place.
You had to have been there and come back.
Why does the merchant build the house? Why doesn't the architect build the house?
Because he's making a merchant house.
Because he's building cathedrals, the architect.
Yeah. He's
But
too busy.
what does my merchant know about building a house?
I think he's buying one.
Yeah.
Oh, right, that makes more
Setting
sense.
up a
Okay,
trading
thanks.
post. It's a trading
Yeah.
post.
He's buying a house. Now, it's one of these games which has lots of different things going on. So when you complete certain things, you can fire off different actions. So it's one of those ones that's all about chaining those actions. Like
Getting that synergy.
One particular, get that synergy. One thing that allows you to actually build a house on any spot, regardless. One allows you to move your merchant halfway across the board in one go. So there's a lot of that kind of take an action and do a thing. And I will also say that this is a board and dice game. They've done a lot of work in making this graphically work. I'd say almost everything works visually nice. It makes sense. All of that iconography, like really good Eurogame iconography. And they have made it quite colourful and bright, which it needs to be because it is a very beige theme, as we've already discussed. Now, the one part which I think the rules were a bit weird and which weren't described on the board was the corruption mechanic. So there's a system whereby everyone loses victory points every round unless they spend some actions on the corruption track, which took me and Andy got it completely wrong the first time we played it, because we were taking like 1 victory point loss each round when we should have been doing that 4 times. So we should have been taking like minus 10 points each round, which was a bit of a crippler. After all this, I remember setting this up and learning this game and thought, oh my God, what the hell is this? I've got absolutely no interest in this theme. I've got absolutely no interest in these mechanics. And yet at the end of the game, I went, I really enjoyed that.
Yep.
There's something wrong with you two. No, I mean, everything you've said, you've said is absolutely, I mean, from my perspective, I just don't think it was for me. You mentioned synergy earlier, and synergy to me means linking stuff that makes sense together and making the next thing better.
That is the literal definition of synergy, Sid. Well done, yes.
Yeah. But we were linking things together that didn't make sense to be linked together, and therefore we weren't really synergizing. We were just joining maneuvers together to get some result that made no sense to me whatsoever at the other end.
Welcome to playing heavy Euros.
Something. Well, it's not though, is it? It's not though, because I've played other Euros with you guys, and it made sense. You go here, you collect that, and then you do that because then that happens over there. It joined up. Okay, it may have been abstract, but it still joined up. Maybe I did in this one. I just didn't I couldn't see it. And that could be just because I've only played it once. It could be because I've had a sleepy day. Could have been a million and one reasons. But this time for me, I did not get a good, enjoying kind of feeling that you guys got at the end of it. It just wasn't there for me with this game. And I think it was because of that. Is that because that one thing is that I couldn't work out how to join the different things together to do what you just said.
That is interesting, because I've been really looking forward to this game. I've been really excited about it. So when we got a review copy, I was so excited to play this. And then we came around, we ended up playing Northgard and something else, didn't we?
We played well, it was a choice between this and Terracotta Army, and Terracotta Army had come out a bit earlier.
Yes.
So Tiletum, I think we got this a little bit earlier, and Terracotta Army had already been out. So I kind of did it in the order in which they came out and decided to do Terracotta Army. So yes. I mean, we should have probably played it a lot sooner together as well, but never mind.
But we had an opportunity, and I was really, really excited to play it then. Having listened to what you've just said now, I'm actually feeling more of what Sid's saying. I like a good, dry, boring Euro as much as the next guy, but it needs to have a story there. It needs to have something with it to make it engaging. Probably for the people I'm most likely to play it with, but just for me to help me get it. We all know how bad I was at Terracotta Army, and that does have a story.
I was going to say, do you remember how well you did at Terracotta Army, Rory?
Do you know, I can tell you some stories about how bad I am at Ark Nova. Right.
So yes. I think I don't want to put points in your mouth, as it were, but
yeah.
You
but
might
please
find
do. It's the only way I'm going to get some points.
Yeah, I might struggle with Tiletum as well. You might not, though. I prefer to think of it as the merchanty guys, basically one of those sort of old style, sort of round, sort of gypsy caravan things, and traveller caravans, as it were. I don't know what the correct term is these days.
I don't think we're woke enough to care. So.
And it's I prefer to think of it as the merchant is basically on a booze cruise of Europe, and he's so every time he basically turns up to this fair because he wants a piss up. That's how I look at the game, and that's the bit of theme I've given myself. But I really, really love it. Now, Laura and I have got it at the moment, and the more we play it, the more we like it. It's not. I mean, Steve's right. It's not an easy game to teach because it is nice to have a story and to wrap your head around what you could be doing and why. And it is difficult to understand what you're doing and why in this game because you've got contracts, you've got people to put in the house, you've got crests for some reason.
Noble families, those
noble families. There you see. I think it's a trading house. You get noble families in. They've got a bit of coin. They spend a bit of money, and off you go. But anyway, once you've kind of got it and you've played it once or twice, it does make a lot more sense. I mean, it's still difficult, but and it's still beige and very dry, even for the driest of boring Euros. But it's a Daniel Taschini game, I think, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yes. So it's another one, but it's very different to his usual fare because the Taschini games that we mostly talk about are Tolkien, Teotihuacan, Trismegistus, all of those. It's very different to all of those because it doesn't have the 3 temple tracks. It doesn't have a lot of the sort of the hallmarks of that kind of game. Kind of feels like one. Vaguely, in the sense there's a shitload going on and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. But it's a very different Taschini game, I would say. But I think it's quite good. And I don't know. I think you might like it.
Is this a game, do we think? Is this a game for the more mature, experienced gamer? Is that where I've fallen down on this game?
Well, because you're a youngster.
No, yeah, because you guys have described the joy of the mechanic, all right, and you're extracting joy and pleasure from the sheer intricacy of the different mechanics brought together on a board. In a much more, it's kind of like if I threw a glass of whiskey in front of Sue and said, "Enjoy that." You can't, you won't, because it's too challenging and too complex a thing to just go. There you go, have a go on that. Does it need? Do you need to be of a certain caliber, do you reckon, for this game?
That's a dangerous term when you talk about us.
No, I know where you're coming from there, Sid. Yeah, there's a theory that as you get more into board games, you crave more complex games. That you start off with your Ticket to Ride, and because you've learnt that and you want something more advanced. And there was this theory that yes, people who are really board game enthusiasts want more and more challenging games, and it's mirrored in the ratings on Board Game Geek. The top games tend to be towards the heavier end. They're not quite the same level as this, but they are towards the heavier end. But this isn't necessarily mirrored in what games people play. It's a weird one. Like if you look at there's a thread that somebody puts together every month on Board Game Geek of the games which have got the most logged plays, and I find that more interesting than top 100 because that's what's being played every month, and it's games like Wingspan, Azul, Ticket to Ride even, and then the odd one like Gloomhaven pops in there, and the top 10 is very different, although there's a lot of crossover, but it's very different to that kind of top 10 you see on Board Game Geek, which definitely pushes towards the heavier end.
Sure. I mean, Rory's touched on this, possibly inadvertently in the past, because, you've talked about here your lunchtime games.
Yeah.
And you're more inclined to play the ones you can get done, in half an hour to 60 minutes, because they're more accessible. And I think that probably is along the same lines as the top 10 that most people are playing, because you can set it up in 10 minutes, you can play it for 50 minutes, you can put it away and still get back in time for the afternoon meeting.
What's really interesting is one on the back of what Steve was saying. And when I joined the podcast, as we've established 5-6 years ago, I played a lot of lunchtime games that were that lighter game that took an hour to come an hour and a half. But now I'm at a point, 5 years on, that actually no, I don't. I will actually poo an hour long game to go. Actually, no, I want to play this. I want to really sink my teeth into something. I want to dedicate some time. That's how I still like my games, but it's like they are right. We've got some time to kill before X. Let's get a board game in. But if we're going to play a board game on a Sunday night, actually let's get this out again and let's play it again, and that's going to take up the next 2 to 5 hours.
We've got 4 hours here. We could set Frostpunk up and then put it away again.
Well, and it's interesting. I remember playing. When I first started playing board games at one of the clubs in Worcester, I remember playing Power Grid. And Power Grid is not as complex as this, but it's a good concept of how this works. And I hated it the first time I played it. I thought it was dull. I thought it was boring. I wanted to go play something with smacking goblins, rather than this. And then I played Power Grid 3-4 years later and loved it. And I kept thinking, why didn't I like this the first time? And I must admit, if you'd put Tiletum in front of me 8 years ago, I would have gone, Jesus, this is boring.
It's not for the beginners, no. It's not exciting enough. I mean, it's a fair point. Sid's right. I mean, you were right when you said, it's very themeless. It is not for the beginner. It is not for Jesus. It's not even really for the intermediate. I think it's definitely for the people who like Euro games and they want a Euro game. And
it feels like a very traditional Euro game, like The Witch. I haven't actually played a game like this or seen a game like this since I used to go to Worcester, and there was one guy there who always brought in this stack of, and they were quite literally grey, boring Euro games. They were grey in colour because that's, German printers had then, I think they only had like 2 colours.
Black and white.
Well, yeah, I kid not. Some of the artwork on some of these games was just dreary, and I remember playing them and trying them because I always said I'll give something a try. And I remember hating them, and now I kind of want to go back. Am I going to like those games if I played them now? No. But no, they're still
probably not. Yes.
So it makes Tiletum an interesting one because I'm not quite sure whether to recommend it because mechanically I find it really good. But that there's such this weird. As I said, there's no theme connecting it all together.
Not a coherent one, anyway. No.
Yeah,
I recommend it, but it does carry the caveat that it is probably not for those who are casual Euro gamers, if such a thing exists.
I think you have to be. It's what you two just described. You have to extract the joy of the mechanic and the joy of the Euro and that
joy of playing the game.
No, because I played the game. I understood what I was supposed to do. I understood what you taught me. I just didn't enjoy the way it was stringed together, because I couldn't find the joy in that. I think that, I think it'd be interesting in a few years. We should put a little. I should start making a little notebook of these kind of conversations, right? Because then in a few years' time, I might be in the position that you two are, or you two are now talking from, which is very much how I am with my whiskey. It's exactly the same growth path.
Mm. And by then, Steve and I will be playing this really dull grade.
Well, by then, exactly. You guys will be on the next thing, and I'll be carrying along on my path. So I think for me, if people are in the similar position to me of just not introducing themselves to board gaming or anything like that, but I've played some of the other games you guys mentioned there from Tuscany and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed those. In fact, I think those are some of the most enjoyable ones I've had. I think the thing I had with this one is it just didn't work for me. It was not that it was too hard or too difficult. I just didn't enjoy the lack of dots being connected together in some kind of even loose story.
Yeah,
and that was it for me.
It really was just a bowl of pasta chucked at a wall, wasn't it, to see what sticks.
No, I don't think that's fair. No, I don't think that's fair, because I don't think that's what you've described. You've described elements of a game. Yeah, you've described elements of Euro board gaming that you really love and you really enjoy playing, and somebody's taken those elements and put them together in a way that made sense to you. It's not. It just didn't make sense to me. Because of my lack of experience, I couldn't connect the dots myself. Sure. I needed somebody to just help me along with a ropey little theme, a ropey little story. You're gonna run a pub, and you're gonna have to buy your beer and then brew your or buy your water and your yeast, make your beer, sell your beer. Oh, by the way, now you got hipsters, so now I need to serve food. That would be a story that made sense to me, and that's a hell of a game, actually.
You should play that. Was that ropey game that you and I reviewed, Steve, years ago? That came in a wee tin. That was essentially what Steve just described.
That was nothing like what Sid described. What Sid described sounded fun.
I'm being a little bit facetious, I think.
Yeah, didn't Sid just describe bread and beer, or beer and bread? That new duo game.
But yeah, no, I don't think it was fair. I don't think it's fair to say it was just thrown at a wall and saw what stuck. I think it's a lot more than that. I think it is a better game, and the way that you two have described it, to me, demonstrates it's a very good game. It's just not for the likes of me.
Anyway, that was Tiletum. Rory, very quickly, are you more interested or less interested in playing it now?
Probably less interested, actually, now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually less interested. I think at the start of this, when you put it back on my radar, I was like, Steve, have you still got a copy? Can I come round and play it or borrow it? But now I'm like, actually, with everything that Sid's just said and the fact that I still have 20 games unplayed on my list, I'm like, maybe I'll play that llama game before I run round.
Well, it's with Andy. You're welcome to have a game of it.
Okay.
Ignore Sid, it's fine.
Now, we have got a game which I think is more up your street.
Okay.
Very much so.
And definitely a game you can play during your lunch break.
Right.
In fact, you can play this multiple times your lunch break.
I like it, okay.
Whether you'll still want to speak to your friends after lunch, your colleagues after lunch, is a different matter. And I will let Andy describe this, but I'm leading this, and this is a game called QE, which I honestly thought was about royal yachts, but it is not.
It is not the Queen Elizabeth, no. QE is actually, thematically, probably less interesting than Tiletum.
Weirdly, you're not wrong.
It actually stands for quantitative easing. You know, that financial term where the government basically prints money to make up for a massive financial shortfall. But it is apparently a legitimate financial exercise by, prominent bankers to make sure that companies don't go bankrupt, so countries don't go bankrupt. However, in QE, because it's a lot easier to say than quantitative easing every time, you represent a country, one of 5 around the world. It plays for 5 people, so you've got China, Japan, the US, Europe, sort of financial body, and the United Kingdom. and it doesn't really matter which country you are, and there are a number of companies around the world what you are investing in. And those companies are generally one of these 5 industries. They're like farming, manufacture, housing, and things like that. And they're each worth a certain number of points, and they're all represented by one of the countries that the players are. You don't know which one's going to come out next, so the country that you are from or representing may or may not have a vested interest in the company that comes out. So, for example, you turn the tile over and it might be like a 2-point farming company from, say, Japan, and I happen to be playing America, for example. Now, the idea is that you make private bids, or rather, every turn, somebody in turn will be the auctioneer. So the auctioneer then sets the price on this company. And this is where it gets interesting, because they can set the price whatever they like.
Okay. Literally anything.
Anything they like. It has to be non-zero, but it could be anything they like. £1, a bajillion pounds, anything they like. And that bid goes out in front, and it counts as a legitimate bid. So that player is basically saying, I would pay this much money for this company. And that goes face up. And everybody else in secret then bids what they think, well, what they would like to pay for the company based on that sort of price set. And there is no limit to the size of any of the bids. And that's what makes this game unbelievably good. The cat's out the bag there, but if anyone's played High Society, it's a very similar sort of idea that you're bidding, but in High Society you've got a limited amount of funds. And if you played High Society,
set values as well.
Yeah, the set values for the cards are all worth points from 1 to 10 plus all the negative ones, but you've got a limited amount of money. But like in High Society, in QE, the person who spends the most money at the end of the game is out and cannot score. Whereas in High Society, the person with the least amount of money left. So same principle, different way around. So you've got to be very, very careful about what you bid. But it means the price goes up considerably towards the end of the game for some of these companies. Now, everyone's the first time you play, everyone's sort of fairly conservative about how they bid. Oh, it's like £1,000. Or I mean, it's not really a currency. It's just a currency unit. I want to bid 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, whatever it is. And then everyone will pass those bids to the auctioneer, who will then compare them and write in secret the winning bid on the back of the tile that represents the... it's all sort of dry erase stuff. The back of that company, and pass that face down along with the tiles all back to their respective players. So you've got a sort of record of who won it and who won what. But the beauty is, of course, only the auctioneer and the person who bid on that knows what the price was. But everybody else kind of knows what they bid, and obviously they know that the winning bid obviously is more than that, but they just don't know by how much. So you get into this wonderful situation throughout the game thinking, well, I've spent this much, and I know he spent that much, and she spent that. So if as the auctioneer, I could now basically bone the lot of them by basically the price on this, 100 grand, for example. Bosh, there you go, 100 grand. Because if it's a Japanese company and they're Japan and they want a sort of a full set of Japanese companies because it's worth a ton of points, they'd obviously be very interested in this. Of course, it can all go horribly wrong and everyone bids nothing and you get lumbered with a 100 grand company. You've spent all of your money and you lose the game because you've gone bust. Because there's points for sets of types of companies, points of sets of the same type of company, and the sets of the countries that the companies are from. So if, say, you're Japan and you end up buying all of the Japanese companies, you get a massive points bonus on top of the points value of the company as well. So there's a huge amount of variation on how you can actually buy these companies and in what combination. But of course, everybody's vying for them because they may have vested interests. And you also get like a secret company that everyone gets dealt at the start of the game. So like I might start with like a housing company. It's not worth any points other than the fact that it goes towards one of the sort of diversification points. Like it could be a housing company, so I need like 4 others and I've got like 3 points or whatever. And that's it. It's really that simple. So you go through about 15 or 16 of these companies, depending on how many players there are in the game. It does scale very slightly. It plays minimum of 3, but maximum of 5. And it lasts about, half an hour, 40 minutes, give or take. And it is just bloody brilliant. It really is. Absolutely love it.
It's really, as you said, the nearest game to compare it to is High Society. And in fact, it's very close to High Society. So if you didn't like High Society at all, then this definitely isn't for you. But it's subtly different. If you enjoyed High Society, you can enjoy both. And I do love the way that, as you said, the bids have no maximum. So, someone could start the bidding off at 5, and then the next bid is 5 million. Something like that. It means it's absolutely mental trying to keep track, because you don't want to be the person who spends the most. So you're there going, hang on, so I'm pretty sure Andy just put a bid in for 20,000. I've put a bid in for 5,000. Do I put 25 in for this? And then you go, I'll put 25 in. You don't win the bid. And you think, oh, Andy's won that. How much has Andy just spent on that then? Or you start doing stupid bids like the auctioneer puts it up for 25 grand and you put 25 grand and won. Which means that putting the big numbers can backfire a little bit, as the auctioneer has very little control over stuff.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah, the auctioneer themselves can get absolutely bitten by going, right, I'm going to try and screw everybody. And they end up getting screwed themselves because everyone just puts in a 0 bid or something like that. Depending on the player count, you can also put a 0 bid in, which will get you 2 points. So once per round, once basically per orbit, you can do that. So there is tactical advantage. Although, to be honest, putting a 0 bid in will get you 2 points, whereas putting a bid of 1 in has essentially the same effect, but gets you no points. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre rule, that one.
But it only works at certain player counts. So for 3 or 5 players, I think you can't do that. It's only at 4 for some reason.
Okay.
If I remember right.
I think I can understand, because it encourages you to 0 bid.
Yes.
And so the more players you have, the more you want to do that. Yeah, I can see why we didn't do it at 3 players when we played it. I think it would have spoiled it, because it just means that 2 people are bidding. I know it doesn't stop you from putting like 5 when everyone's bidding 5 million.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, it makes you think. It forces you to want to do a 0 bid, which you enjoy this as well, Sid.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And High Society, I played with, I think, Andy for the first time a couple of years ago now, and I always thought, yeah, this is kind of fun. I enjoy this. I enjoy the bidding thing of it. But this, for me, just blew it out of the water. I don't know what it was about QE, because it's such an innocuous looking box as well, and you've got the dry wipe cards and all the other stuff, and I just really loved it. I loved the how complex it was, and how much it's about. It was almost about the people playing it with you will completely change that game every time.
Yes. Very much so.
Yeah. And I love that element of it. And I guess High Society's exactly got that element in it as well. But because it's fixed numbers in High Society, you kind of know what folk are going to... You can almost know what people have got in their hands. Whereas in this, because we're picking any number, as you say, some folk probably play with no numbers bigger than 10, whereas we had, I think in one game I was putting random house bidding prices on just to make the maths at the end really hard. But... do you know what I mean? It in the size of your numbers, you can completely change the game in one hand in QE. And you can break you could break the game, I reckon, entirely in one hand.
Well, there was one game I played with the Bewdley team here, and they've really taken to it as well. I haven't played with a group of people who haven't enjoyed it, and we were playing a 5-player, I think it was, and we got towards it like 2 before the end. So there was the round we were on, and there was one more, and then that was it. And it just so happened that the game would have ended on the player they'd not won any companies at all, so they couldn't win. So they decided. So basically, what happened was that the person just before them, the person just after them, they bid something ridiculous like 4 million quid on something that was worth 25 grand. because they knew they were going to lose anyway because they couldn't get all the number of points, which meant that the auctioneer, because that was one before them, knew what they bid. So therefore, they were going to win the very last company because they knew even if they bid 3.5 million, there was no way they could lose because the bid before them was 4 million and everybody else was never going to bid 3.5 million quid for a 50 grand company. It was absolutely brilliant.
And I think that's the genius of the whole game is you take out the box and you think, oh, this is going to be a bit straightforward, a bit easy, and it's not. It's actually there's quite a lot going on in this little box.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is the game in this case for me just facilitates the reading of the people around the table, trying to remember not only what's happened the last hand but maybe 2 or 3 hands ago. I reckon Steve sat there with only he's probably only spent, he's got loads of companies but he's bought really cheap stuff at the start, so he's probably only spent about 20 grand. And then whereas I know for a fact that I've pumped in some stupid number, which means Andy sat there with some like even dafter number on some random thing that he's bought a hand ago. I just loved that. I just loved the whole dynamic of this game. And the little, the dry, what they call whiteboard things, dry erase boards and stuff like that. That adds to the game as well. It didn't feel like it was some kind of tacked on. It's actually a functional part of the game.
Yes.
And it just worked really, really well.
Yeah, it minimises the components. You've not got a whacking great pad of paper that you need to keep, buying new ones of. You just keep rubbing it, and off it goes. The pens will run out eventually, but you can just buy, 5 more dry white
buy
pens.
them from anywhere you want. And,
exactly.
And it's such a simple way of keeping the waste down and making a game that you can, reuse.
And it's not very big. It's about, I don't know, it's about a similar sort of size as something like Waggle Dance. So it's about that kind of scale of box. It's slightly sort of taller and thinner, but it's about the same sort of size. So it's not a massive game. There is an expansion for it called Commodities, I think it's called. Whereas inside that you can have things like gold, oil, and it's crypto. So there's like this sort of, you get extra stuff every time you make a bid. I haven't played the expansion, so I don't know exactly how it works. But my understanding is basically there's a big pile of these things, not unlike the companies. And every time you make a bid, if you win a bid, you get one of these things. I don't know what impact that has, but I'm sure it makes it slightly more complicated and slightly more fun. But at the moment, I don't know if it's available in the UK. I had to import my copy. From Board Game Tables, which were in the US. So it was cost me $15 to ship it, which isn't outrageous considering, when it was bought. It turned up, it was in December, I think it was. I completely forgot. I actually ordered it in like October or something, so it took about 2 or 3 months to actually get to me, and I'd forgotten I'd ordered it. It just turned up one day. I was like, what? Oh shit, yeah, I ordered this. Wow, fantastic. So yeah, it's buying it from the States is probably not the cheapest way of doing things, but so I ended up paying all in. It was about $70 for a small game, which is obviously quite a lot of money for what it is, but totally worth it.
So we appear to have talked much longer than I thought we would. So we have actually got a real big mailbag for the questions here, but we're going to have to leave that till next episode. So thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed this, please give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And share us with your friends. If you want us, we can find us anywhere on the internet. Just look for Polyhedron Collider. We are all over the place, and including BGG Guild 2726. If you do have any questions for next episode, because I have a funny feeling next episode may be a heavy mailbag-related episode, send us to them on Facebook, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild. And until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra!
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.